BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And hello and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Darren Jaime, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our community. Coming up on today's show, a Bronx organization announces additional early childhood enrollment in light of the recent push to make universal pre-K services more available. Also, a U.S. Marine veteran will join us today to tell us about his mission, Operation Walk America. And then it's tax season. Find out where you can go to get the services you need to get them done exactly right. And after that, our political analyst, Mark Myritz, will recap the President's State of the Union address, talk about pre-K funding and the latest turmoil in the Middle East. And finally, we'll introduce you to a Black History Month community event that you simply don't want to miss. So stay tuned, because all this and much more is heading your way, because right now, we're officially open. And hello, everyone. I'm your host, Darren Jaime, and today is Wednesday, January 29th, 2014. Of course, you're watching Open, the only live and interactive program bringing the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV set. We encourage you to stay connected to us. You can find out about us at Twitter at BronxNet TV and Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. Well, we start things off in a unique fashion. Our first guest today is on a mission to walk all 50 state capitals of the United States in an effort to raise awareness for homeless veterans. He's here now to tell us more about his trek, and is the president and CEO of the Veterans Miracle Network. We're welcoming Mac McCowan to the show. And Mac, good to have you.
Good morning, sir. How are you on this fine day?
Mac, we've had you on before. Things are pretty good, and we wanted to start off the show with you because knowing, first of all, that you are down, located in the southeast part of America, and that part of Louisiana has been pounded by unusual snow temperatures. So let's begin with first finding out how things are going down there.
Very, very cold. I can't wait to get further south.
Yeah, well, the truth of the matter is that you're walking over 15,000 miles of all the state capitals. You want to raise awareness for veterans. And so far, you've walked how far?
2,662 miles.
Now, we had you here in studio a while ago when you were walking through the state of New York, and you made your way all the way down from New York, and you're presently in Louisiana. Talk to us a little bit about the walk and what it's been for you, because you're trying to raise awareness for veterans, and during yesterday's State of the Union address, President Obama highlighted one of those veterans. What did that mean to you?
Yes, sir. We started this. What really kick-started this walk off for me was after the 9/11 attacks in 2001. I noticed when our veterans came home from combat, they seemed to be forgotten about. And this seems to happen with every conflict: Vietnam, Korea, up to today. And being a veteran myself, that just didn't sit very well with me. So I wanted to do something to bring awareness back to our veterans. And I prayed about it for the longest time, and it occurred to me that every state produces a veteran. So what better way to bring awareness back to our veterans than to walk to the capital of all 50 states. And I do want to thank you for you guys having me in your studio. That was almost 2 years ago. It's hard to believe it's been that long.
Yeah, I mean, it's been almost 2 years ago. You started in New York, and I asked you about how long it was going to take you back then. But talk to us about the reception that you get from state to state, because many people drive the United States of America, but to have somebody actually walk for a cause, what's the reaction been like for you as you walk from state to state?
You know, I have never met a stranger out here yet. Sometimes people, when I'm walking, I pull behind me a cart that weighs about 50 or 60 pounds. It's got all my gear in it. It's got a big American flag that flies from it. You can tell I'm a veteran just by what I wear when I pull behind me. And even if people don't know what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, they're still very receptive. They're very kind. The hospitality has been off the charts. People have been amazing that I've met on the road.
And I've asked you the question before. I think it bears repeating again. I asked you, like, where do you stay as you travel from state to state? And I remember one time you informed us that a firehouse actually saw what you were doing and actually put you up. What's it been like in terms of accommodations and how are you making it out so far?
Well, that's true. The first 2 years, about 90% of the time I would hit fire departments. Most of the firefighters I met are veterans, so we clicked very quickly on that level. But then I promised myself that from now on, there's about 6 more years remaining for this walk. I'm going to focus my attention on the homeless population of veterans, which is over 100,000 in any given year. That includes men, women, and even sometimes their children. So I told myself, if they're homeless, I should live that lifestyle. So I've decided to camp out every night from now on, unless it's very severe weather or like tornadoes or freezing temperatures. But for the most part, I'm now camping out.
Mm-hmm. And I know that, on your journey, you say you average about 10 to 15 miles a day, and you have a 60-pound cart behind you. At any time during the journey, does it really get tired to the place where you're saying, listen, I just can't do this?
There have been days, and especially in New York and the New England states, where it's just hill after hill after hill. And there are days, I'm 52 years old, and this walk beats up my body every day. But I remind myself that there are veterans that have far less than what I have. They've lost limbs. They've had their bodies burned. They've gone blind. They're deaf. They're now in wheelchairs or confined to beds. So even on my worst day, when I'm suffering from blisters and bad back and I'm really in a lot of pain, I just remind myself what I'm going through now doesn't compare with what they have to go through for the rest of their lives. So regardless of the pain and discomfort, I'll never quit this.
I asked a question earlier about President Obama's State of the Union speech yesterday when he lifted up Corey Remford, the Sergeant First Class, who was definitely devastated by the attacks after his 10th tour of duty, shrapnel, face down in the water. Talk to us about what it means to have the President of the United States really lift up veterans and really make a push for veterans.
That really touched my heart. I really believe that our veterans should be on the forefront of any newsreel or news outlet, whether it be newspaper or television. We have to remember our veterans. It saddens my heart that when I turn on a lot of news networks, and I won't mention them by name, but you hear more about the Kardashians or Charlie Sheen's drug abuse or whatever, and we need to.
Justin
I'm sorry
Bieber.
to have issues. I really do have sympathy for them. But those are issues our veterans go through every single day. They should be on that spotlight. They should be brought to the forefront. And I was glad to hear that President Obama did that last night.
Well, certainly, we're glad for you and what you're doing. As we said, you're in an effort now to go across the whole United States, reaching every one of the state capitals. We met you 2 years ago here in studio. You had the opportunity to come from New York State. You're down in Louisiana now. You said you're about 2 more years away from actually completing this journey?
6.
6? Okay. Now let me ask the question.
6 months, yes, sir.
Okay, then let me ask the question that most people ask. You've got a family. And
yes,
they've been very supportive. What's it been like for your family, given the fact that you sacrificed your life already for the country, but now to sit around and sacrifice your life in another kind of way, making this tremendous trek across the United States? What's the reaction of your family? Do your family say, "Are you crazy? Come home"? What do they say?
Well, considering we grew up together, they kind of know my mentality and my character. I've always had that kind of extra drive to do the unusual and the adventurous, but they're extremely behind me 100%. I couldn't have a stronger support system than what they bring to the table, so I'm very, very thankful for what they do for me.
Well, thank you, and we're thanking you for what you're doing for remembering veterans and really putting it out there. Mac McEwen, who is walking all over the United States, and he's walking to try to raise awareness for veterans. And if you want to find out more about it, just go to OperationWalkAmerica.org. And Mac, I told you before that we'll continue to follow your trek across America. We're glad that you could update us today, and certainly we look forward to talking to you in the future.
Sir, it's my honor, and I really appreciate you guys are on board from day one, and I really appreciate the time you guys taken to speak with me.
Oh, no problem. You take care of yourself, and be careful out there with those elements.
Yes, sir, will do.
All righty. Well, we do have to take a quick break, and a big shout out to Mac for the great thing that he's doing. And after the break, we'll talk about a couple of things. But first, hundreds came to remember the life of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at a special ceremony. Our BronxNet's Arlene Makoko was in the Wakefield section of the Bronx and has more.
Worshippers and visitors joined together in a tribute to the late great civil rights leader, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at Trinity Baptist Church in the Wakefield section on his birthday anniversary. Officiating the ceremony, Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr., who welcomed guests and a handful of dignitaries, including New York State Comptroller Thomas DiNapoli, Bronx Democratic Party Chairman State Assemblyman Carl Heastie, and U.S. Congressman Charles Rangel, whose district covers a portion of the South Bronx.
When I marched with Dr. King, I cussed every step of the 54 miles. I had no idea how my bad feet could make any change. That we've been able all over this great country to get men and women elected, notwithstanding the color of their skin. It means that God is good.
Earlier, Comptroller DiNapoli shared a favorite quote of his by Dr. King that reminds him of the need for communities to participate to bring positive change.
We must come to see that human progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts and persistent work of individuals who are willing to be co-workers with God.
Others spoke about continuing Dr. King's vision by ensuring that children are protected. This in the wake of headlines detailing the accounts of 2 toddlers that point to the possibility that neglect and abuse resulted in their deaths.
It's time that we stand, and we stand for issues that matter. That's what Dr. King did, and that's what we need to do, not just on this day, but every day.
Diaz Jr. invited guests to reflect on Dr. King's example by asking the following questions.
What have you done? Who have you helped? Who have you taught? Who have you inspired? Who have you forgiven over this last year? Dr. King taught us that forgiveness is not an occasional act. Is a permanent attitude.
He noted the power behind the words used by Dr. King that helped transform a nation. He also cautioned that words can have adverse effects.
Please understand that words can hurt and words can build.
And building up the audience with his words, the Reverend Dr. David Kelly spoke on a passage involving a woman who only had oil in her possession as creditors looked to enslave her sons because of a debt owed by her late husband.
But Elijah now, I did what you told me. Got a house full of jars with oil in it. What do you want me to do? I want you to participate in your healing. I want you to participate in your deliverance. Now go sell the jars and pay off the creditor. And then you and your boys can live off the rest.
Guests praised the event as an opportunity to remember, even decades later, the life of a leader who continues to inspire and motivate.
And this was a wonderful service, and I invite everyone to return and come back every year, because this is just such an uplifting service, and it reminds us about our duty to the community and to serve one another.
Dr. King gave his heart, his time, his spirit, and his life to improve the life of others. We have a responsibility not to let the work of Dr. King go away in vain.
As a woman elected official, I stand tall on Dr. King's shoulders, and I know that a lot of work has been laid to allow me to be where I am.
The work towards equality is something that's going to continue in the days and years to come. That was something spoken over and over. And to win that battle, everyone must participate. For BronxNet, this is Arlene Makoko.
Live with a human for a while, and you get to know a few things. Like, I know she does strange tricks for no treats. But the one thing I will never for the life of me know is how she gets so tiny and inside that box. Natalie, how do you get so tiny?
And we're back here on Open. Our next guest is here to break down the latest stories from around the world. More particularly, it's the day after the President's State of the Union address. He is here to break that down. We welcome political analyst and SUNY Maritime professor Mark Myritz. And good to have you.
Hi, Darren. How are you?
Good. It's the day after, so a lot of people are asking the question after the President's State of the Union address, and all of the remarks have been flying, the comments have been flying. Overall, how do you assess the President's State of the Union address? Did it reach the heart of the American people?
I'd give him, as a college professor, somewhere around a B+, A-. Pretty good to try to portray his vision for the remaining years of his presidency. But part of it was a bit of overreaching in terms of the presidential power, and that's what's been very controversial in the feedback from this. In other words, he's implementing a lot of things on his own, as by executive order, without working it out with Congress on the basis of, I can't work with Congress, they're not helping me do what I need to do, so I'm going to do it on my own. In particular, the retirement accounts and the increase in the minimum wage. And how do
you think this plays out, given the fact that you talked about the Affordable Care Act, something that's been questionable by the Republican Party and Americans, by the way, and now you're saying that you'll do a lot of things by executive order. Does this help or hinder the president? Because some people said he hasn't been strong enough, but he's come out very strong in this particular State of the Union address.
Well, he came out very strong, but he's kind of given up on bipartisanship in a way, and that well, it's debatable. Should a president give up on bipartisanship and issue executive orders? And on Obama health care, that's a highly controversial program. And actually what he's done there, he's modified the program by executive order, particularly with the canceled plans and also with the small businessmen, where he said, okay, I'm giving you an extension on the implementation of the program. So he's doing a lot in terms of his own power, and the question is, in separation of powers and checks and balances, does the president have that amount of power? Should the president do that? On the other hand, a number of very important things have been done in history by executive order. President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation was by executive order. The desegregation of the military was done by executive order. So a lot of important things have been done by executive order. So it's kind of a question of, if you can't get it done with Congress, maybe you need to do the heroic thing and just go and do it, and, you know, take the chance that you'll get some feedback, but you'll get something good done. And the minimum wage is very, very popular in terms of increasing the minimum wage is highly popular across the board in the United States to increase it. So he's kind of taking the, going with the flow on the popular opinion and the public opinion. And he's also saying, Congress isn't helping me on these things, I'm going to do it myself, and it's a good thing. So I give him a balanced grade on that.
Among the critics of the President's State of the Union address, of course, Senator Ted Cruz talking about the fact of the Republican Party anti-executive order, president using too much of the quote-unquote judicial powers. I want to talk about the Republican Party for a minute. Given the fact that you watch the President's State of the Union address, you see 3 or 4 responses from the Republican Party. Does this give a picture that the Republican Party is still not cohesive? We've got to have the Tea Party, Progressive Tea Party, Senator Ted Cruz. Does it give the picture that the Republican Party still does not have that unified voice?
I think that the Republican Party has run out of gas, honestly. It's got its big issue, which is Obama health care. That's its big issue. And it continues to push forward on its kind of tired old idea which was stated by the Congressman McMorris Rogers in her response for the Republicans, which was, well, we believe in a free market, and we believe government shouldn't be telling us what to do, and we believe that it's the same old message that they put forward. And, of course, they are broadside against Obama health care. Now, we realize Obama health care is not perfect. It is far from perfect. But after a while, it seems to me, it's just a kind of a repeat, and just repeated and very repetitive. Now, the point you make about the multiple messages shows that the Republican Party is completely divided. And if it's divided, it can't function. And the Tea Party is certainly kind of the worm or whatever that has worked its way into, I don't want to be too derogatory, but the Tea Party is really eating away at and cutting away at the ability of the Republican Party to field a presidential candidate in 2016. I mean, let's be realistic. If they because the point is that the true believers in the Republican Party believe, and this is a point about the Republican Party not only in the federal level, but in the state level and local level, they would rather lose the election than field a candidate that doesn't have the right ideology. We've seen this before in mayoral races and state races. Republicans come along, oh, that candidate is not true to their ideology, that candidate is not proper, doesn't have the right Republican ideals. I'd rather that person should lose. And then, in fact, they field their own candidate, divide the vote, and the Democratic candidate wins. And this is exactly what you're seeing right now, but it's breaking apart the Republican Party, and they're not going to find a candidate that will be so true. The only true candidates are Ted Cruz. He's given himself the imprimatur. I'm the true Republican, but he is not the Republican who is going to get the support from the entire Republican base. So they're basically destroying themselves.
We talk about bipartisanship. The biggest move of bipartisanship, I guess we saw yesterday during the President's State of the Union address, was the support for Staff Sergeant Corey Remsford, who served those 10 tours of duties. Probably the most emotional moment of the whole State of the Union address. What do you think the message that comes out of that is for America?
Well, I mean, the first point is that President Obama is the president, and he speaks for all the people. And he put forward an important message about our veterans, about our soldiers, and the heroic effort that they have. So I think that it's a great thing, and presidents do that, and that's a great format and the State of the Union to be able to see this hero and give him the kind of praise that he deserves and thank him for his efforts and all of our soldiers out there. In the background, of course, is the whole question about what we're going to do in Afghanistan. Are we going to leave troops in there or not? And I think the president did talk about that to some extent. But that's kind of, to me, that's kind of the political backdrop of that. And that's problematic because wherever we are engaged, whether it's in Afghanistan or now the issue of Syria, we have pushback and we have problems, and all we have is disaster for U.S. foreign policy. So the president is treading a very thin line in foreign policy as well.
We're talking about the president. He's off hitting the campaign ground, if you will, talking about his State of the Union address, really drumming it up across America now in Wisconsin today. The question that comes forward now is, as we move forward, getting closer to 2016, right here in our area, we're dealing with Governor Chris Christie and the Bridgegate scandal. How much is the Bridgegate scandal going to affect the 2016 possible launch of a Christie campaign?
I did want to comment about the president's tour around the country to be the president and fight for cooperation against Congress. This reminded me of President Wilson's whistle-stop tour to support the League of Nations, which was an awful failure because he literally, it didn't succeed. And so I think that we need kind of a reset in our government, where everybody sits down and has kind of reconciliation to work out bipartisan solutions and not leave the president out there on his own. Now, as far as Christie is concerned, I mean, clearly the Bridgegate scandal, whatever it is, and it seems to be morphing into many other kinds of scandals related to other things, including the Hurricane Sandy issues and other things, could be a mortal blow against Christie's presidency, because it raises the question: if he knew about it, then it's, of course, then you know, end of game, finished. If he didn't know about it, then that questions, and I put forward, what kind of a leader can have this kind of shenanigans going on? I mean, when you read about it and think about it, it is so honestly absurd that you think maybe Hollywood thought it up. It's so silly and absurd. Close the bridge to punish the mayor and have traffic jams for hours. I mean, it sounds like a sitcom, but no. So if he didn't know about it, that shows a failure of leadership. And also, who you appoint to be your assistants and who you appoint to be on your team. He has a team of people that really are not only inadequate, but basically, who knows, maybe, you know, cross the line into criminality. Who knows what it is? And we'll wait to see what the investigations show. So either way, I think he's very vulnerable. Now, on Hillary's side, the probable candidate, she's got Benghazi to deal with, and she's trying to deal with that in speeches and talking about it. She just gave a speech last week. She's trying to, you know, to resolve it. So I think it remains to be seen.
All right, well, we'll check it out on both sides. And, of course, that's why we bring you back, so that way you give us the latest in political news.
It's a pleasure.
All righty, Mark Myers, our political analyst. And we got to take a quick break, but guess what? Stay with us, because when we return, we'll find out how you can give your preschooler a head start. We'll be right back in a few seconds.
Hello, I'm Carla Cadenas, and you can check out Open 2.0 at 4:30 on Fridays, or on the web at www.bronxnet.org.
Barry, time is running out. According to my calculations, 1 in 5 kids in America struggles with hunger. How can so many children face hunger when there's more than enough food to feed them all? You're right, Barry. We can help solve hunger by teaming up with Feeding America to get food to hungry kids in communities across the country.
Help Flint and the Feeding America network of food banks get food to the people who need it in your community. Find your local Feeding America food bank at feedingamerica.org/hunger.
Together, we're Feeding America.
In light of the renewed push by Mayor Bill de Blasio and Governor Andrew Cuomo to make universal pre-kindergarten services more available, BronxWorks announced it has additional seats for children's ages 3 to 5 at its new Early Childhood Learning Center. And here now to tell us more is the Development Director, Ken Small, and good to have you.
Same here. Thank you.
Yeah, so in the world of politics, as we started off talking, you know, the governor talking about universal pre-K, the mayor, and so right here at BronxWorks, kids 3 to 5 have a great opportunity.
Yes, and we've reopened, I should say, actually. We had a center, an early childhood learning center that was rebuilt at 1472 Montgomery Avenue, which is not too far from Bronx Community College. And we have been able to increase the number of slots available, the number of seats available. We had a location around the corner from there for about 6-7 years. And we've been able to increase capacity from 29 children to 55 children. So it's something that we view as being very significant.
And when you look at being able to raise these numbers and meet the need, obviously from your perspective as a community-based organization, you sense a tremendous need. How long has this need been out there? Because, I mean, while it's just coming to light and just really getting the press, this has been something that you've been dealing with for a while.
Well, it's interesting because it's wonderful that the president talked a little bit about universal pre-kindergarten last night. The governor as well as the mayor both have it high up on their priority list. But this is actually something that has been part of the early learning conversation now for about 10 years. But it's encouraging that once again, it's become part of the political discussion because, as you very well know, children represent our greatest investment, and starting with children very young makes good sense.
And so next Thursday, do you have some slots that have to be filled, and so the application process is going on now?
The application process is now underway. We've got a wonderful early learning center at 1472 Montgomery Avenue. It's got 3 wonderful classrooms. One classroom will specifically target 3-year-old children, and the other 2 classrooms will be specifically for children who are 4 and 5 years of age. So folks who live in that area or who work in that area, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for them and for their children educationally to get a leg up.
Does it feel like finally people are catching on, if you will? Because, I mean, this is something we've been talking about for a minute, and universal pre-K has been the order of the day. How does it feel for you guys as an organization really being able to meet a need and knowing, given the fact that it's getting so much political press, if you will, that you're right on target?
It's very encouraging in the sense that, yes, this has now gotten back onto the local as well as national radar screen. And we're hoping that the conversation actually translates also into resource commitments. One of the interesting things about universal pre-K funding is it's wonderful to have in the sense that it provides additional resources for early learning services. But as is often the case with any kind of service, the resources just are not enough. So the fact that the governor's talking about this, the fact that the mayor is talking about it, the fact that the president is talking about it, it's encouraging, and we're hoping that as a result of these conversations that there's more of a resource commitment than there has been in the past. Not that there hasn't been a commitment, but I think there's a need for a greater financial commitment. The governor, for example, is saying we need to do this. The mayor has actually come up with some numbers in terms of what he thinks makes sense in terms of per child costs. We believe that, yes, we need to continue this conversation, and we're hoping that the bottom line does increase as a result.
Are more people having the conversation?
I would venture to say yes. The fact that the president mentioned this last night, the fact that you've got the governor talking about it. Before Mayor de Blasio became mayor, when he was running, he made this one of the centerpieces of his conversation. So I think UPK is back on the map, and now it's my hope that the folk in Washington, the folk in Albany, and the folk down at City Hall commit the resources to make the effort the success that it can be and should be.
So if there's a parent that's out there watching right now and they've got their young child, what do they do?
I think there's a few things they can do. One is in terms of their elected officials, call them, email them, fax them, text them, write them letters, whatever is necessary to make sure that elected officials continue to recognize UPK as a concern. So that's one thing. I think a second thing that parents can do is, in their given local communities, research what programs may currently be available in terms of hours of service, in terms of number of slots available. And the third thing that I think parents can do is just to continue to keep this as an issue on their radar screen. You know, families are always busy. Most parents these days are working or looking for work. So oftentimes people get caught up with other things, but this is something that I think families need to keep on their radar screen, in particular families that have young children.
And so if you have a family of a young child right now, we want to get you this valuable information to really be able to get this to you. So kids who are within the ages of 3 to 5, the Early Childhood Learning Center is 1472 Montgomery Street. Now, up until tomorrow, am I correct, is the application?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And so we want to encourage you that if you have a young child and you want to get the application process out there, please, the application deadline is tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
And so where do you have to go and what do you have to do?
The Bronx Works Early Childhood Learning Center at 1472 Montgomery Avenue. And the telephone number there is area code 347-590-8945. 55.
And you talked about being able to meet the additional demand. And so what are some of the demands, before we get out of here, that you guys are facing? Because, you know, you've got a tremendous community, the Bronx, 2 million people strong.
Yeah.
But yet and still there are a lot of services that people are really, you know, really starving for.
I think in the context of UPK, the big issue is amount of funding, amount of hours of service. UPK programs are structured so that you have two scenarios. One is part-time hours and one is full-time. Now, the way UPK defines part-time, it defines it as being 2.5 hours a day of service. It defines full-time as being about 6.5 hours a day. For families that are working or are looking for work and you're seeking childcare, 2.5 hours and 6.5 hours doesn't exactly cut it, because generally speaking, you're going to need about 10 hours or so. So it would be wonderful for us, in terms of the conversation about UPK, to move it to the point where we're talking about UPK funding for a 10-hour day and for a 261-day year as opposed to a 180-day year. I think that's the part of the conversation that we need to really push on.
Well, of course, we have to continue the conversation, bring you back, and Ken Small's here with us. Thank you for coming, and, you know, congratulations on what you got going on, and definitely keep us up to date.
Thank you.
All righty. Ken Small, Development Director, for Bronx Works. We encourage you to stay with us, because guess what? We still have more information to give you, more valuable information on how to get your taxes done right and at a fair price, because, yes, it is tax season, and you need every dollar in your pocket. So stay with us. We'll come right back in a few seconds.
I already knew that I was going to go to college, you know, from a young age. I definitely want to major in political science. After that, I'm going to get my law degree. Then I'm going to come back to Detroit, boost the economy, become the mayor or something, try to make the situation better for other people. I feel like I owe it to the city. I'm determined. It's going to happen. My name is Justin, and I am your dividend.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
Know what?
What?
Since I got adopted, I've learned a lot about these humans.
I know. I mean, check out these two. It's Flirt City over here.
Yeah, I noticed that. It looks like my human is definitely into your human.
Oh, look! I think she's getting his number.
Nice.
Your human's got some sweet moves.
Takes after his dog. Oh, look, they're doing that thing where they put their arms around each other.
She kicked up a leg. It's like in the movies.
That's awesome. Looks like we're going to be hanging out a little bit more.
Being a dad can be tough.
No. What do you mean she's not coming?
When's the fairy princess coming?
Any minute now.
But when you're willing to do anything...
It is I, Groogs Zinkelbell. Okay, time for cake.
It's always worth it.
I know it's really you, Gru. I'm just pretending for the other kids.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Look at me. Hey.
Raymond, look at Mommy.
Maybe the light hurts his eyes.
Maybe she's just not hungry. Maybe he can't hear us. Maybe we're not stimulating him enough. Maybe it's a phase.
Avoiding eye contact is one early sign of autism. Learn the others today. The sooner it's diagnosed, the better.
Well, here in our borough, Ridgewood Savings Banks will be hosting Arriva's free tax preparation days right here. And what does it mean for you? It means that you might be eligible for free tax filing. Here to tell us if you qualify and where to find tax services is Ridgewood Savings Bank Vice President and Community Reinvestment Officer Christopher Smith and Arriva Tax Program Manager Maribel Montilla. And we welcome you both to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
So this is the time of year where people are a little antsy, some in high expectation, but you guys are providing a service that really allows people to, in some cases, take advantage of a free tax filing. So Why don't I first ask, and I'll start ladies first, if you tell us a little bit about the program.
Well, the program Mariva been in the Bronx since 2003, as you know. They've been here before. And last year we provided more than 8,000 free tax return for our community with a refund of more than 30 million in refund for them. With the partnership with Bridgewood, we're able to provide that in different locations. He will save the locations for them.
So Christopher has a little bit about the locations, but before we get to the locations, what's it like for people to be able to actually come to a bank, have these free tax services, and just really be able to get a burden off of their shoulders?
Well, we've been partnering with Arriva since 2007 doing the taxes. It allows people to come to a safe place, get their taxes prepared for free, filed for free, in a safe environment. There's no pressure, there's no sales pressure, there's no cost to anybody. And they come to the bank and there's a sense of security that they're at a bank doing their taxes. And, it also provides an opportunity for people that they don't have bank accounts set up to have direct deposit, because this way their refund comes quicker to them. And also a chance for them to access the money that much quicker without one of the refund anticipation loans or those type of products that tend to be prevalent during tax time, which can be very expensive.
Now, while we do talk about free tax filing, we want to make sure that we get across that there are some stipulations in order to get the free tax filing. So why don't we tell people who's eligible for free tax filing?
Well, those who are eligible are single with income of $25,000 and with dependents $52,000.
Okay.
I was just going to join in that as we go through the tax preparation days, it's important that people bring their identification, Social Security cards, any of their dependent information, and all the appropriate tax documents when they arrive. So.
Because sometimes people do come and then they're missing something, and then it becomes kind of challenging to be able to accommodate them. Now, I want to let you know that throughout the course of both February and the beginning of March, there are going to be 4 days that you could actually be able to do this. I think we have the listings here, but on Sunday, February the 9th, between 9:45 and 4 p.m., you can go to 3445 Jerome Avenue, and that's where you can get a free tax filing or be able to get assistance in having your tax prepared. On Saturday, January 15th, the same hours, 9:45 to 4 p.m., Community Board number 12, which is located at 4101 White Plains Road at 229th Street. You can be able to go there. And then also Saturday, January 22nd, 9:45 to 4 p.m., 711 Allerton Avenue. There you see it right on your screen. Well, you don't see 711 Allerton Avenue. It's getting ready to come right there. There it is. Okay, you can check it out. 711 Allerton Avenue. And then Saturday, March the 1st, 9:45 to 4 p.m. At Bruckner Boulevard. And so the time is actually 9:45 to 4 at all of these locations. And how many people are we seeing actually take advantage of this?
If I can just interject, the first workshop, which is scheduled for Jerome, is already booked.
Really?
We have nearly 100 people signed up to attend that day.
Okay.
On average, over the past 7 years, between the 4 locations, we see about 175 individuals. So they fill up very quickly, the locations, because it is an opportunity to get your taxes done for free from IRS certified volunteers. So people, every year we grow, because people that have been there 1 year come back the next, and they tell their family and friends to come as well. So.
Yes, and also we not only, when we prepare the taxes for them, we also try to educate them for next year. For example, for those who's going to be owing, we tell them what to do for next year to be better. You know, increase the withholding on the W-2 and those type of things to prevent the owing next year. So we try to not only do the free tax services, but also to educate them how to be better for next year.
Yeah, because that's important, because if you're owing money, you certainly don't want to owe year after year after year.
You don't want to file.
That's it, that's it. Do you find a lot of repeat customers?
Yes, at our locations, every year it's the same faces you see. They're very satisfied with the service that they get, and they come back, and as I mentioned, they tell their family and friends to come as well. So we've seen an increase year over year from when we started.
And so once again, because I want to stress the importance of the right documents to have, because we don't want somebody to sign up and then get there at the last moment, then not be able to lose their place in line because they didn't have. So let's tell them exactly what they need.
Very important. They need to have all W-2. Sometimes they have more than one job and they forget that it is more than one W-2 that they need. So they need to make sure they have W-2 for all jobs they had during last year. Tax documents, for example, interest from the bank. Child care providers information. If you pay child care, you need a Social Security from the babysit in order to claim that money. It's money available through the state for those who pay babysitter.
Pension documents if they're getting their pension, Social Security statements showing what they've received and the like. I think one of the things that we've seen over the years is individuals that are receiving some type of Social Security payment, whether it be disability or regular Social Security payment, they don't have any documentation showing what they get as far as their monthly income from Social Security.
And so, what's the most common mistake that people make when they come through?
Failing to bring a W-2, it's one of the reasons. The Social Security card is very important. Everywhere you go to do your taxes, they should be asking you for your ID and Social Security cards. If they don't ask you, you should not be doing the taxes there because that is one of the requirements for the IRS. It's a legit place if they ask you for the proper documents. So that's the key to look out there to make sure that they ask you for no copies, no unless you return it's the actually Social Security cards that we need to do the taxes for everyone listed on the return.
What's the benefit, if you will, for a person to have the ability of having taxes being done at the bank and being able to come in and do that? What kind of benefits do you? Well,
the benefit, it's free. I mean, if you go out there, you're going to pay $200-300. That could mean, a week of groceries for a family who need it. And you should be getting the same refund amount everywhere you go if it's done legit, right? So there's not catch to it. It is the same service. It should be straightforward, the same amount everywhere you go. Supposedly to be. Supposedly, right? So it is definitely free. You get the advantage of it's going to be direct deposit. You're going to have the opportunity to open the account if you don't have one with Ridgewood. And 10 to 15 days, they have the money in their account, just like if they go to a paper pair. So there's no catch.
Hey, Chris, before I get out of here, I've done the story for years about Americans and the fact that many Americans to this day still don't have a bank account, savings account, or a checking account. We seeing any improvements?
We have. We have two of our branches, one in the Soundview section, the one in White Plains Road where we're doing the tax prep days, where they were underbanked areas, that there's still areas in New York City that do not have banks. So we went in and filled that hole and opened up 2 branches there. And we see year over year, we're seeing growth in both of those locations. People coming up and establishing bank accounts. And this is just another way to introduce those that may be reluctant to come to a bank, that they can come get a service and see that there are products and services available for everybody, and they can come in and inquire about it. And we have staff on hand to help answer questions if people have them about bank accounts in general.
Well, thank you guys for coming and sharing with us. And I know when I see you guys at this time of year, either we're going to smile or frown. So it's good to see both of you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, Christopher and Maribel. And yes, we want you to stay with us because there is still more open. And coming up after the break, when we return, we'll give you a Black History Month event preview and what to see coming up in the future. So stay with us.
NFC, AFC, offensive linemen, defensive tackles, quarterbacks, and cornerbacks are all working with United Way for a million little reasons. The kids of our communities, to ensure their academic success all the way to graduation day. You see, it takes about 12 years to create a graduate, but it takes the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between a kid becoming one or the other could be a professional athlete, or it could be you. Studies showed the earlier we get to kids, the better their chances. So become a United Way volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor, and make a difference in the life of a child, for the life of that child.
Give. Advocate.
Volunteer. Live United. Join your favorite NFL players. Take the pledge. Go to unitedway.org.
Being a dad can be tough.
No. What do you mean she's not coming?
When's the fairy princess coming?
Any minute now.
But when you're willing to do anything...
It is I, Grooves Zinkelbell. Okay, time for cake.
It's always worth it.
I know it's really you, Guru. I'm just pretending for the other kids.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Imagine what you'd see if every child had a book to read. So the mission is for us to get a book to each and every child. So let's join hands, book people unite. Unearth hidden passion. Come on, we'll have a good time. One book can be the first that'll helps to change a life. People unite.
Read to a child today and spark a lifetime of ambition.
Well, although Black History Month is traditionally celebrated in the month of February, we here at BronxNet are getting a head start here on Open. And joining us to discuss this year's theme, significance, and huge community event is Director of the Urban Divers Estuary Conservancy, member and liaison officer of the 26 USCT Historical Interpreters and Living Historians, Ledger K. Ballin, and the member of the 26th, also Denise Evans Shepard. And welcome back. It's as I was saying to them, it was that time of year we see, and it's this time of the year we see you again too.
Moving along the timeline.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. So this year we're talking a little bit about the Civil War, and we're talking about black regiments in the Civil War.
This very significant year for New York Harbor in the history of the Civil War, because this was the year that the black regiments were raised right here in New York City, in New York Harbor, in February 1864. And there were over 4,000 men, most of them were free men, who left basically their trades, left their families to enter the war to fight to end slavery and save the Union. So we're taking the opportunity this year, and that's our big theme for the year and the Black History Month, to celebrate the black regiments of the Civil War. And with me is actually a descendant of the 26 USCT, which my regiment represents. And obviously, as director of the Urban Divers, you know, we've been working with the group for almost 5 years, so it's inevitable that I'd be sucked into this and representing today on behalf of everyone. Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit, Denise, about the black regiment in the Civil War. As you said, being a descendant, some people are very familiar, some people have no knowledge at all. How much are you finding that people just don't know?
Believe it or not, they don't. And if it were not for my grandparents, who kind of told me about my great-great-grandfather serving in the 26th, I wouldn't have known either. You know, the schools, we hope that they encourage and educate our children about the black participation in the war, but they don't. And maybe because they don't know, but we look at and depend upon them to give us a source of education. And it's basically left up to us to educate our children. And that's basically what happened. I was told by my grandparents about David Carl serving in the 26th. And when I got of age, I went out and researched it myself, and everything they told me was true. So, you know.
What should people know? Because, you know, we hear a lot. I'll give you a perfect example. Many people weren't familiar with the Tuskegee Airmen until it really got that press and where it should be. When you talk about the, you know, the Black Regiment of the Civil War, what should we know?
Well, it was the General Order 143. It was a law that was passed that enabled blacks to enter the Civil War. It was 200,000. It was at the time where we were actually losing the war. So they were needed a reinforcement. So 200,000 men ended up actually joining in and fighting in the Civil War. Out of New York alone, 11,000 volunteers came in. We actually got 50% of that, because there were 4,000 plus that were raised in New York City. So throughout the different states, you know, there are different groups too. They had there was a Hispanic regiment, and there were the Jewish regiment, and also the Irish groups, and so on. So everybody sort of had a chance. In New York Harbor, it was actually an extreme to try to get in the very beginning. You know, there was a lot of opposition. The idea of black men carrying guns and, you know, hopefully for their own revenge and freeing their own families. So there were a lot of resistance, and eventually, like I said, the 143 pass. Frederick Douglass was a massive supporter of this, and also during that time, New York was not quite different as it is today. With a lot of black activists and a lot of church leaders advocating for that equity to allow the blacks to come in and do their part and freeing their families and, you know, fight to end slavery and save the Union.
Well, I want to get this picture. I want to have the opportunity to show this picture here, and then give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here.
Sure. This is part of the one of the plates in our exhibit. We looked at the diversity of the African diaspora that were part of the American Civil War, which we did not know. There wasn't just African Americans that were native here. There were blacks from Canada. We found in our own 26th Regiment there was a Chilean, in our own regiment. There was a Haitian, Monsieur Virgil, who was also part of the 26th Regiment. So this photograph sort of illustrates, their youth. If you look in their eyes, these were not men. These were men that meant business. Like I said, a lot of them were free men who had trades, who had family, who left to pick up arms at a very risky time. Remember, there were other groups. The riots in New York were caused because the Irish immigrants were fearful to be fodder in this other people's war. So these guys were anxious to get into the war and fight to end slavery. So that was a comparative difference in that. And you can see in their eyes that they were very strong, powerful warriors of our time. So that's what that card showed. I have another card here that exemplifies this is an interesting, and this is a story of Rupert Pryor, for example. Some of the many things we will learn in our exhibit. This is a before and after photo. He's an interesting man. He's a man that actually escaped from slavery, joined the military. So you have a before and after photo. This is when he had just came to camp after he escaped, and this is after he enlisted and became a soldier. So you had different motivations of various men that looked into that. We also looked at the complexities of slavery also, right? Because that was the main cause of the war. There was people fighting to end slavery, especially for the black men and the black people of this country. So we looked at a very special and unique character in that slavery story. And this was about the exploitation of a child prodigy. This is a guy who's called the story of Blind Tom. Blind Tom was a musical prodigy that was actually a slave and completely exploited. It was said that during his time, it was worth $5 million. $5 million. He was a guy. He composed actually a very famous Confederate song called the Battle of Manassas, which is a very famous battle. He was one of the composers of that tune. So we looked at how slavery had different dynamics and comparing some of the issues that they were dealing back then to what some of the issues we're dealing with now. The wage issues? Isn't that something kind of related to exploitation?
Right.
So we take different elements of the Civil War as an educational cultural enrichment tool in helping people, become enlightened about the past as we're moving forward towards the future.
Let me jump in and ask the question about where can people see this information? Because people coming from the Bronx and they're watching and say, wow, this is very interesting. I want to check it out. What can they do?
Yeah, two parts of the story. One of the great things we're doing, now you can see that we're marrying we operate the mobile museum called the Enviromedia Mobile, which is a mobile nature and maritime museum. And we created a partnership with Chain Article and the 26th USCT in order to bring this type of African heritage and living history as part of a staple program. So you can find this in two places. You can go to our website, www.youtube.com, UDCNYC, and to look up the 26th USCT and the upcoming programs for the year. We're on Facebook. It's New York Regiment, United States Colored Troops. Just punch that in on Facebook and like our page, and you'll be tuned in to all that we're doing here in the city.
Okay, well, we got to get ready to get out of here and get out of time. But Denise, what does it mean before we get out of here real quickly for you to have your descendants and now to be able to tell the story and have more people find out about it?
Well, it's an honor. It really is an honor. I was able to find so much information through the New York State, archives, the National Archives in Washington, D.C., and I encourage everyone and anyone, even if you don't have any involvement in the Civil War, anybody, just try to find out about your history, because once you start, you're not going to stop.
Well, thank you so much.
I would want to interject just for a minute there.
10 seconds.
To show you this. There are a lot of interesting people living here in New York City that have descendant families who actually were authors. Denise wrote her own little book about her family. This is one of our members, Willie Cooper, wrote a book.
New York one, Cheryl Willis.
There you go. Wrote her own book about that. And of course, one of our mentors is Harry Matthews, who wrote this wonderful book, and that's actually the Bible, the 26th USCT, by the way, of the New York Regiment. So
we're almost
lots of interesting materials for people to enjoy and learn.
Legend Denise, thank you so much. And we want to tell you it's been a pleasure coming to your homes. We thank you for watching us and here on Open, and thank the viewers for tuning in. If you missed any part of the show, guess what? Recablecast 5 and 10 p.m. on Cablevision's channel 67, Verizon Files channel 33, and anytime on the web, www.bronxnet.org. Darren Hyman encourages you to keep your heart, your mind, and most of all this channel wide open. Take care and God bless.